スタジオ3万
Welcome to another episode of Chester Pridecast, all things Pride and beyond. This week we're talking TV and movie representation for the LGBT community. So sit back, relax, grab your remote and have a listen. Before we begin, we'd just like to say the following content may contain strong language and adult material that may not be suitable for all audiences, so your discretion is advised. Any views or advice expressed on this podcast are the views of Chester Pridecast and do not necessarily represent the views and the opinions of Chester Pride. Hi folks, welcome back to another episode. How are we all today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, doing good.
And who have we got today with us?
I'm Dylan.
I'm Dylan, like it's the first time you're on the on the episode.
It's been a couple of weeks, to be fair, because I've missed one, and then I had a poorly eye.
You did.
I had an infected sty.
I mean, we don't need your eye for podcasts, but I get it.
But yeah,
whatever.
I mean, you need me to be able to see when I'm getting here without crashing, and then you will not have me ever again. So, but yeah, I'm doing better. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, doing good. Excited to be here. It's been a long time coming, I suppose, but yeah, I'm excited.
This is Dan, my partner, the one I always throw under the bus.
Hello. Yes, I catch that every single time. Thank you very much.
It's like whenever he listens to the episode, it's like, as if you just said that about me on the podcast.
I've gotten clocked on my notes app. I'll bring them up every time.
He's now got his own chance to let loose.
His redemption episode.
Cracks knuckles in anticipation.
So this week we are, as I said in the introduction, talking about LGBT representation in the media, TV shows, movies. But first, how's your week been?
It's been busy, working a lot. Obviously been struggling to be able to see, so I just had to crack on with one eye.
I was going to say, were you in work when you had it?
I was working, yeah. I still had to go to work because it wasn't really affecting my physical well-being. It was just really sore, really painful, and I couldn't see. So
had that for a laugh.
I just had to crack on. I had to say to the managers to keep me away from any grill and any hot sauce, which was nice.
Could you imagine hot sauce with an eye infection?
Even the lemon and
get it out.
Was too strong.
The lemon and herb
it was too strong. So I stayed away for the week, and they were really good with me. To be fair, they let me do what I needed to do, and it's given me the chance to get better. Yeah, so I'm feeling better. I've got a busy week next week.
If you don't pick a time for your body to heal, your body will pick a time for you.
Exactly. Exactly. What about you, Wes?
Yeah, I've been busy. Well, we're nearing the end of the season actually, so I've just been planning the next couple of episodes. We've got 2 left, and then
I believe so.
I'll give you all a break for Christmas.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, I think we mentioned that we'll be doing a Christmas special. I don't know how that's going to look just yet, but yeah, we'll see. We'll work it out. We always do. But yeah, as it's getting cold and nights are drawing in, watching things on the big screen and at home, we basically binge so much now. Now that it's light.
It's the joys of winter, isn't it? When it gets dark, you close the curtains, you put the radiator on, you cuddle under a blanket.
I'm debating that one.
Oh yeah, good point.
Cost of living.
We are in a cosy lives after all. But
5 blankets.
5 blankets, yeah.
Maybe the duvet as well. Yeah.
Get the dog biological hot water bottle.
Literally.
Poor dog.
But yeah, I will start with the just a bit of history on our representation in the media, certainly in the last century. So during the era of the 60s and 70s, this can be seen in the fact of fictional gay cinematic characters were often presented as dangerous and predatory. But examples of the films from this era include The Boys in the Band in the 1970s, Vanishing Point and Midnight Express. But the one I do want to kind of highlight is The Gay Deceivers in 1969.
Classic.
It is. I personally find it's a really good film. Dylan's looking at me just like, what?
Blank expression. Haven't got a clue what he's talking about, but I'm very willing to learn.
Not many people know the film, but a lot of people know a meme that kind of sprung from... Well, I wouldn't call it a meme. It's just a clip from it that kind of went viral, didn't it?
Well, it's 1960, a film focusing on two straight men who attempted to evade the draft by pretending to be gay men. According to gay film historian Vito Russo, I think that's how you say it, his book The Celluloid Closet, co-star Michael Greer, who played the flamboyant gay character Malcolm and who was gay himself, tried to work with the screenwriters and directors to minimize the negative and the caricaturism as Malcolm in a positive light. So I think that's very evident in the actual film itself. Well, me and Dan have seen it, but basically I would say it's a very like fun kind of film.
Yeah, it's a romp, isn't it? It's a comedy.
It's a comedy.
It's definitely designed to make you laugh, but I suppose through the lens that we're looking at it with, it's focusing in on this one specific character and how he kind of not only navigates the world, but how the world sees him.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. He's because they're trying to evade being drafted. Basically, they're like they move into another community, a predominantly gay community, and they're trying to really ham it up to be like really gay. And then there's just loads of challenges in the whole film. But there's the neighbors who they're just so funny. It's the one you might have seen it on TikTok where it's like
the clip that went viral from it was one of the girlfriends goes over to visit one of the guys trying to avoid being drafted,
and she walks over his flowers.
He kicks her out the house for I can't remember the reason why, but she walks through Malcolm's flower bed.
Right.
And he comes out of the house and he's like, "Look what you've done to my peonies!" And she just shouts back, "They're marigolds!"
Oh, and then what? That was it. He goes,
God, I think she's right. They are marigolds.
I may not know my flowers, but I know a bitch when I see one.
I feel like I need to see this.
It's on YouTube, so if you Google gay deceivers, that's it. Oh
gay deceivers.
As if I forgot the title.
I'll have to look that one up, definitely.
But yeah, I think that's very much, it's almost like a gem in what's
it's definitely
negative.
A time capsule
big time.
Of what, not only what life was like in general at that point, but also how we were.
Well, it was more so as well how like film creators seen the industry. I mean, I'd imagine in the industry back then, as well as today, there was a lot of gay characters anyway. So I don't understand why, it's been such well, like I said, like villainizing characters and caricatures of gay characters.
Yeah. And just because, that film is probably one of the first unabashedly real examples of where they weren't lying at the fact that this particular character was a homosexual.
Yeah.
But as we know, just from history and things coming out after people have passed away or whatever, there's been gay people in cinema basically since the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people like to forget that Marlon Brando, for example, was quite known for his bisexuality.
Yeah.
Maybe not at the time, but it was something that came out that came to light later on. And, he was, to use this phrase, a sex symbol, especially to women. But would he have ever been able to portray his bisexuality on screen?
Yeah,
no,
no,
definitely not.
Yeah.
So Malcolm really was one of the first examples of that.
Yeah, I think certainly like certainly in media, LGBTQ plus people work, but when you look at the likes of football, I would say football is now where media was like 50s, 60s. It's still like a very heteronormative, like...
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure I seen, like, this guy came out about a month or two ago and everyone was making a big thing about a footballer felt so brave to come out. And it's like, why do
you feel brave?
Feel brave? Like,
it should just be normal.
Just allow it. Just because he's a footballer doesn't mean that it's any different from another gay man coming out, you know what I mean? Like, it's a weird way to think about things like that.
Well, just while researching for this episode, we'll start with the what I've seen as kind of bad representation, and then it's it's only when I've looked back and thought, like, when I've watched these as a kid, it didn't really, like, it didn't bat an eyelid to me kind of thing. You just watch it for what it is. But when you look back now, you think, oh my God, that is, like, Little Britain, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you think now, like, it's still almost like a national treasure kind of TV show, but, like, it is so problematic.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that obviously you question how they even got away with it back then.
Yeah.
Like, there was the term snowflakes that is thrown about so many now. I'd say that there were still snowflakes back then.
I think the only redeeming factor was that they weren't prejudiced against one group.
Yeah.
It was everyone
got slated.
Everyone got hit.
Yeah, that's probably how they got away with it. If they were going after one specific group, I think even then they would have run into issues.
Yeah.
But it was like everyone's taking fire here, so
So we can take the mick out of everyone.
Yeah, no one can really get offended because everyone's being taken the mick out of, I suppose.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the first one on that I researched here was Ace Ventura 2. Now, for me, growing up, they were some of my favorite films.
Yeah.
And then now you look back, and so basically the villain of Ace Ventura 2, they basically transitioned, and that's kind of like the whole plot twist of where did this footballer go? Yeah, so basically the character was a trans woman, but in disguise.
Right.
And I think, so Ace basically discovered this, and like there's a scene where he's like washing his face out because he's basically kissed her, and to make it sound like that they're disgusting. And,
Yeah.
And even to the point of like when they were saying, no, she's a woman, pulled down a skirt or something, and then like revealed the genitals in the back, and then everyone who's like kissed her was like throwing up.
Yeah.
And, like just throwing themselves off like off the building.
That seems to be like a common trope, because Family Guy did a very similar thing when Quagmire's dad transitioned.
Yeah.
And Brian accidentally slept with Quagmire's dad at a hotel because he didn't know who she was, and then proceeds, once he finds out, to vomit everywhere.
Yeah.
So clearly that seems to be a running thing.
Joke.
Yeah, from back in the day of, oh, you slept with a trans person, how disgusting. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Another one I found, what I thought of, and people might disagree with me on this, but Bruno as well. So it's basically Borat, but as this gay character. So he goes like across America and leaning on the Christian community and just like all the kind of walks of life that will evidently find homosexuality a problem, and gets their reaction that way from it. So it can be seen as funny, and it is still a comedy, but I remember watching it with my girlfriend in the cinema, and I was like, I'm really uncomfortable watching this.
Yeah.
Because it also, I mean, I've not seen it, so I can't judge, but from that description, it also feeds into that stereotype of gay people want to shove it down your face at shove it down your throat at any given opportunity and just say it whenever they want. It sounds like they're feeding into that stereotype as well, which is like...
Well, it's like you say in that one scene in the film, he goes to like a swingers club, and they get into full swing of everything.
Of course.
And then he's stood there like dead close to this guy's face, like staring at him going, oh, you like that, you like really like making him uncomfortable. And it's just kind of making it out that like we're predators basically. And then the other one, I mean there's loads, but the other one that I really wanted to highlight here was Stonewall. That in itself is a story that should be told by the community.
This was the film that came out a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. But basically, it's a telling of the 1969 riots in New York, offensive and a whitewash by many critics as a focus on a fictional white character and not of the riots themselves, and the misuse of Julie Garland's funeral actually as a catalyst of the riots, which again, that never happened. So yeah, it kind of like spat in the face of the actual event.
Yeah.
Of like a completely fictional white character, when you could just tell the story as it actually happened.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah. And that's another kind of angle to this as well, and I mean, I don't know, this adaptation of the Stonewall events might have been made by heterosexual, but I'm going to assume that a lot of people from the LGBT community were involved in the making of this. Sometimes we get it wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes we struggle to represent ourselves because we're so used in society, to being the odd ones out, even if it's only by like a point of a degree. We always kind of see ourselves as standing out a little bit more than everyone else, sometimes in a good way, and sometimes not so good way.
I get it. Like, some stories can be told, and you're always going to have critics. You're always going to have that people going, well, actually, it's meant to be like this. But that, it was so bad that, like, it's kind of just skated over now. Now, a good film, I would say, is Pride. Like, That to me is like a wholesome telling of a really lovely story.
Oh, that little
it's based on true stories.
My lesbians.
My lesbians, where are they? These are all films that
These are all right above my head. Literally, I haven't got a clue.
We'll avoid Stonewall.
I personally think a bad representation, I would say, is Brokeback Mountain. For me, I thinking about it now. Like, as a kid, I watched it and I didn't really understand what was going on until I saw what was going on the screen.
Yeah.
And then thinking back now of how obviously the wife gets disgusted.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. Like, back then, obviously it probably would have been quite a massive shock for someone's husband to be found with another man and her life is crashing down. You've got to obviously take it from a wife's perspective. Her life is crashing down in front of her eyes, but it was the way that she was so disgusted, the way that she reacted. It would then, I would think, give message to people of, you have every right to feel that way about this, and you should be disgusted in the information that you found out. I think it was a sticky one. You can look at it two ways. I think that. I
mean, like cheating in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like she's valid in her feelings, but like you said, it's there's that extra level of this is disgusting. It's like, well, what he did wrong in general.
Yeah, but he couldn't help himself, you know what I mean? Well, there was feelings there and he felt a certain way, and that's what obviously the storyline is. But I was thinking about it and I was like, that is one that it probably made me uncomfortable when she found out, because I was dead happy for him. I was just dead made up for him. You go off in your tent and have a little good time, mate. Go on.
Well, this is it. It's
full of beans.
Well, this is a theme that I think filmmakers really take note of. When it's good filmmaking, they will build up empathy for a character, regardless if they're good or they're bad.
Yeah.
If they've done it right, like we've just watched Loki, for example, the finale of Loki. When you first meet Loki, he's the villain for what? How many years? Mm-hmm. And then eventually he's now like, you feel for him.
You root for him, yeah.
And it's like even Game of Thrones, like the amount of times you're like, hey, he's a bastard. And then it's like, oh no, but I know why he's a bastard.
Yeah, you feel for him, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's when art stands out the best, I think, when it reflects reality as it is. Mm-hmm. Even if it's something stupid like a high fantasy or a sci-fi or something like that, when it is a relatively accurate reflection of what society is in that moment that it's made, then it's doing a good job. It's doing what it's meant to do. It's going to make people feel something about it.
So I'll touch on it in a bit, but it is that kind of point of, if you're trying to force something, then the audience is not going to pick up on it. If you're,
I agree.
For me, like, and I've mentioned this about season 2 of Heartstopper, like, I liked it, but for me, it was kind of overkill in a way that it's kind of forcing a very pointed storyline. And I get it. It's that's what it's based on. But it's also, you could develop, actual problems and different characters in different ways. You can villainize different, like, you know what I mean? There's just so many different avenues it could go down. But it's just, I don't know. It just makes me feel a bit like, ugh.
It's a difficult one, Heartstopper, because especially since it is to do with children. It's following children and an identity crisis. And season
maybe
1,
I am just looking into it too much, and that's probably why.
At the end of the day, your opinion is just as valid as everyone else's. And one of the things that a story really needs to do to keep people engaged, especially something that's taking place over multiple installments, is they have to be, although it's an overarching story, they need to be self-contained stories with their own themes and their own end goal. And the end goal of season 1 of Heartstopper was Nick to come out and whatever, and that's what made the season 1 so great. And in season 2, they kind of just seem to carry that on with how he's like struggling to kind of
be
be buying out, and it's like,
well, the thing
are we still at that stage now where our story, that's
all we're getting from it.
That's how people tell our stories is, oh, they're coming out, and it's like,
and now they've got a struggle.
And then the story ends with, and you know, they found a partner of the same sex or whatever, and they lived happily ever after, and it's like, no, they have an entire life and other interests and things going on.
Well, this is the thing.
That.
So for me, like, I think the second season really focuses on book 3 and 4 now of reading them. Nick's not so much a heavy character in them. For me, it's more about Charlie and his anxiety and his eating disorder, which it is a very prominent part of the book, which in the show, they obviously touch on it, and some people may disagree, but I think it's just kind of overlooked. Moving on to some slightly better kind of stories, good representation that I found, that I personally watched and love, is Se2 Ep8. I don't know if you've ever seen that on Netflix.
So when it first came out, I remember it coming on, and I think I watched its episodes. Yeah. I think I nearly watched all of the first season. I was very confused. There was
a bit
so
slow.
much going on.
Yeah.
I don't even think it was
heavy.
like slow. There was just so much going on, and I was like, fucking hell, what does all of this
It
mean?
expects you to pick things up very quickly
100%.
and along the way. And it's like, this is quite difficult.
Like, we're just nearing the end of season 2 from watching it over again. But I think if you give it a rewatch, you know, you probably understand.
I'm older now as well. Like,
well, that's
obviously,
it.
like, I think I was like 16.
Oh, there you
17
go then, yeah.
when it first came out. So, and at that time, I was not identifying as trans. So it was, you know, thoughts and feelings that I probably wouldn't relate to now. Like, I've got so many different ways that I feel towards different things now. So I would definitely probably give it another watch and see.
But yeah, the basic premise of the show is it's a group, 8 people who were born at the exact same minute, and they're a cluster. Basically, it explains it throughout the season, but the basic premise is they are like not so much, like an evolved form of humanity that's a secret kind of species, if you like,
right?
And they're all mentally connected with each other, so they'll all feel the same things at the same time. Like, if one of them's happy and the other one's happy, that's how they'll connect, and they'll like come to each other, and they can talk to each other,
right,
without being next to each other, blah blah blah. Anyway,
they're all Bluetoothed to each other, basically.
Okay. But yeah, why I like it so much is the writer of the show is LGBT as well. But there's trans storyline, there's gay storyline, and it's not even so much like, and this is my point of why I like the show, it's not aimed at, oh, you're trans, you've got to come out, you're gay, you've got to, well, apart from one of the characters has to come out, and that's a whole big thing, but it is kind of like, it's more a story of human connection.
Right.
And there's like scenes where, like, say a couple of them are having sex, and they'll end up that they're all having sex together, because they're kind of all connected.
I think I've seen a clip on X.
It's very graphic.
Yeah, I think I was like scrolling for a bit of me time, and it came up, and I was like, nah, I don't fancy that anymore. That put me off.
But no, it's kind of like, you can tell that when they're in that scene, like the heterosexual character, he is kind of taken back a bit and surprised, but ultimately he just like goes with it.
Cracks on.
Yeah. Because why not? Because you're having sex with 8 people at the same time.
It's an experience, mate.
And sometimes as well, when you're looking at and thinking about LGBT representation in on screen, sometimes you kind of also want to go, it ain't that deep.
Yeah.
It don't have to be that deep.
Yeah.
Can it be acknowledged if it's relevant? Of course it can, and it should be if it's relevant. But otherwise, just let the character do whatever the story requires them to do. And if that information comes up, we'll pick it up along the way, and then it's just something that we know. Yeah. But it doesn't mean the story has now fundamentally changed. It's not a plot twist.
Yeah.
But what I do like about it as well is is it Lito, the Mexican gay character? He comes out, and it is an amazing story, but he's basically an actor who his agency just drop him because of that. Yeah, I think aside from like just their individual stories, it is a great story of. I'm so gutted that it got cancelled after the second season, but fans like battered them to be like, you need to finish at least, like, finish the story. So they did like an hour and a half long special or something.
It was a 2.5 hour film.
Yeah, basically.
And they were able to wrap up everything that they needed to.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a rumor that Pornhub was going to buy them.
Yeah, they were.
To buy the show and finish it or carry it on.
That's another thing, isn't it? It's like, isn't it funny that it was a porn business that were willing to pick up what mainstream media dropped? They're like, no, we don't want to lose that representation from that show because that was really good.
But it was also representing positive sexuality.
Yeah.
More than anything else. But go and watch it.
Okay, Doug.
One that we watched, was it on Netflix? I can't even remember. Bastard, Son, and the Devil Himself.
Yeah.
So this focuses on the journey of the main character and discovering his, witch powers?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so...
Again, it's like a fantasy.
Yeah. So there's like two factions that are basically after him, and he requires the assistance of a queer magic user. I think they're a non-binary character as well. I can't remember. We're going to have to give it a rewatch, I think.
It's basically like Percy Jackson meets Harry Potter. It's almost Twilight, but instead of vampires, it's witches.
Yeah. So then he befriends this queer character, and they go on this journey together. And it's like a journey of, well, they've got like sexual tension between them. And he's interested in the female character that's along with him as well. But then he kind of like, he kind of discovers that he's liking this guy. That's
how you can tell it's a young adult novel as well. There's always a trio and one of them's a girl. It's always two lads and a girl.
Yeah. But it's like his sexuality is never really like brought up, and they just kind of like, they have a moment and then it's done. And it's kind of like, we don't really need to add attention to this, but it's kind of part of him and his discovery.
He is in a heterosexual relationship with this girl that's the female lead of the series, and as much as it's pretty much towards the end of the series, isn't he, that him and his girlfriend have a falling out. She goes off somewhere, and the main guy and the queer friend, they finally figure something out and are able to like move
past their difference
on
whatever,
to somewhere else or something like that. I can't remember, but he gives him a kiss right before he goes, and it is a romantic kiss. And
it's not just a peck, is it?
Yeah, you kind of left to kind of go, that's come out of left field. What's that all about? But it's never brought up again, and I think the point of it is that it's not meant to be. I mean, the show got cancelled, so we'll never know anyway.
I know that was a good show as well.
It was, but taking it completely as it was, it wasn't so much a person kind of questioning their sexuality. For at least how I took it, it was more, I've developed a connection with you and I want to show that in some form of embrace. And the way I know how to do that is
because the whole point of the scene is he's like, he knows that he fancies him. So he kisses him and then he pushes him off the building to fall through a portal to like leave him because he wants to do the journey on his own. So fans could be like, oh yeah, that's what he's doing. But like, no, it was a bit more romantic than that. You could tell there was something more to it. But I think the other ones I've got here, I'm gonna actually just join them together. So it's the Russell T Davies versus
Ryan Murphy.
That's it, Ryan Murphy.
Every country has one.
So what?
One LGBT member who goes, leave it to me, lads.
Literally. So obviously, Ryan Murphy's the
American Horror Story.
Yeah. He's created American Horror Story, created Pose, American Crime Story. He's done quite a few LGBT related shows. And I say related because we're not always the main characters in the shows, but it always includes us.
So this is the point. So like, even in American Horror Story, like on the face of it, it's got nothing to do with our community.
You wouldn't even think that there would be anything to do with the LGBT.
But the way they weave kind of those storylines into these shows, it is so seamless, and it is so clever. It is,
so clever, and like they're not representations that make you question it either. Like I could feel like
it's almost like there's gay people normal in the world, so why would they not normally be?
Why would they not be in
just normal life kind of thing?
Yeah. They don't make a big sing and dance out of it like they like to think all the gays do.
And the thing is, for me personally, that's that's my favorite form of LGBT representation, where we're just a part of the group,
part of the story.
Yeah, we're just a part of the story. I personally,
part of the crew.
Exactly. I as a gay person don't particularly like standing out from the crowd. I like blending in. I like being a part of a bigger group. I like my individuality, but I want to be a part of the group.
Yeah.
And I like when people like me in media, whether it be film, TV, stage, book, or whatever, do the same thing as me. They just want to blend in. They won't deny it. They won't hide it. But it's not their main
Well, it's not even so much blend in, but just normalize it.
Yeah.
Not have it as the crux of the story.
Yeah, it's not like this is Dan, he's gay, this is Dylan, he's trans, this is Wes. You know what I mean? Like, there's no need to add the little extra bit. This is Dan. That's all it is to it. This is Wes. Like, I hate it when people have to try and push.
It's their whole identity, their whole personality.
It's not me.
But then
not every representation needs to be the stereotype.
Yeah. So then the other side of that then was Russell T Davies. Now he's done the
British version.
The British version, like Doctor Who, Cucumber. Well, that whole series really. It's a sin.
TV show of all time, Cucumber.
Yeah.
He did 3 shows simultaneously that told an overarching story. So there was Cucumber, Banana, and Tofu. Tofu was like an online mini documentary series specifically aimed at LGBT people and how they can practice safe sex and all this sort of stuff. And it was really informative, but the real meat of that project was, ironically, because they're not meat, but was Cucumber and Banana. Cucumber was the main story, and then Banana was...
It was like season 2, like...
It was like a sister show. So the characters that appeared, say if like you were watching Cucumber episode 4 and a character kind of popped out to you and was like, oh, that character was interesting, I'd like to know more about them. More than likely, the 4th episode, Banana, covered their story.
Right, okay.
And it was more or less split between different generations. So Cucumber followed the older generation of the LGBT community,
with the younger being secondary characters.
With the younger guys acting as their support, whereas with Banana it was flipped,
right, okay.
So the younger generations were...
There's a bit more character development, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the episodes were a bit more shorter, they were a bit more risque, but it was that was the point. It showed you that these two shows exist in the same world, but because you're seeing it through a different collection of characters, they obviously see the world and act in that world very, very differently.
Yeah.
Like the older generations, there wasn't as much sex. It was more to do with general kind of life things, really. You know, getting married. Should we get married? Can we even get married?
Even the two main characters, they go through like a story of basically their sex life dries up, doesn't it? So then they try and like navigate how to fix that and if they can fix that kind of thing. So there's a lot of like different topics and themes to that. And then like I said, the season 2, Banana, it's kind of like like halfway through the season you'll see a point where it was on the last season. It is all so
it reminds you
but that's how well like he's done these shows. And another one like that was It's a Sin.
We haven't really gone back and revisited because it is a very
for me
it's a very rough story.
Have you ever seen it?
No. Guys, this is
very rough story.
Like, I've got a lot to watch when I go home. Apparently.
Yeah, exactly. We're sending you home with a list today.
I feel like my biggest own personal. It's not even like I don't even want to watch it. It's like when something new comes out, I will avoid it.
Yeah.
I hate.
You don't like the hype.
I hate to jump on the hype.
Yeah.
And then I always regret it because I'll watch it later on. Like it took me 2 years. I think the end of Stranger Things season 4 had finished and premiered, and I hadn't even watched season 2. Genuinely, like I got fed up. So I was like, everyone was telling me, and I was like, you know what, I'll give it a go. And I fucking loved it once I watched it.
Well, is that maybe why you've not watched like Heartstopper? Because you think it's going to be
such a hype.
LGBT hype kind of thing.
It's like hype. Everyone's screaming about it. Everyone's talking about it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'll watch it. But then I'm like, I don't want to jump on that bandwagon. Because also, like, there's a lot of people talking about it in work when it comes out.
I was like that with Game of Thrones and American Horror Story.
It's hard, like, especially if there's people talking about situations that you might have a strong like opinion on.
Yeah.
Like, I would find it hard. One, if I've not watched an episode, I'd be like, shut the fuck up.
Like, you're spoiling it.
And two, like, you don't always know. Like, you may think you know someone that you work with, but they might have an opinion and they're talking about something and it's like, oh, I don't want to cause beef in work over a TV show. Yeah. It sounds like really silly, but I genuinely just avoid the hype and I'll wait for 6 months. Like,
sometimes you just don't want to be in the heat of the conversation whilst it's happening.
Well, it's the same with me. Like now, like I work with a friend two friends in work who watch Big Brother. Now I won't watch it because I can't commit to like having to watch something every single night. He's like, it's only 3 weeks, but it's like, no, I don't want to be tied to it. And it's just the hype of it at the moment. Even since I was like, I just hate the fact that you don't watch it. So, because I can't talk to you about it. I'm like, I don't care.
There's so many other things that I could talk to you about, mate.
Literally.
No, I mean, to be fair, speaking of Big Brother, I will say, since we're talking about representations,
I've heard there's a lot.
Hallie, I want to give props to, and credit to. I thought she was fantastic. And I have never sat and watched a trans individual talk about how it feels, what it's like, and different aspects of being trans so genuinely and so like I've never been able to relate so much. Like, everything she was saying was exactly how I would say it myself. Yeah. And I actually cried a few times in some of the conversations that she was having with some of the housemates because it was just real and pure and genuine. And I don't think I've ever seen someone be on telly and talk about it without turning it into something that just seems like it's not. You know what I mean? There is aspects, and I'm not saying that people don't feel certain ways, but it seems like people push certain things and then don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Like, they'll say certain things make them feel something but can't explain why, and that's when I question their true intentions with stuff. Whereas Hallie, everything she said resonated with me fully. Absolutely. I thought she was a fantastic housemate.
Yeah, it's because I find that sometimes as well, especially because as you were talking about her, I was like, she's probably had that conversation in her head and with other people a million times before. And it's like, I find that, I've run into it in real life, on the internet, and through media. Yeah. Sometimes LGBT people like to be the loudest voice in the room, but don't necessarily have a lot to say. Yeah. And it's like, there's no point in being loud if you can't
fill that space.
Exactly.
Yeah. Literally. I feel like,
and that's why having our representation be so critical and so important, and why it needs to come from us as well.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's kind of like, even say like RuPaul's Drag Race, for example, when that started, it was so small. Now it's like, it's worldwide. It's consumed by the mainstream now. Even coining terms that they used, it's got so big, and that's I've mentioned about it before that I only watch like the UK ones now because I feel it's too big. But it is kind of like a positive representation for us. Yeah. Of not just like gay men getting in drag and stuff, because there are trans people, there are non-binary people in it, and these are the kind of stories that these kinds of stories that are needed to be told for the mainstream to realize like these people exist.
Even I think on one of the US seasons recently, they had a heterosexual man on there.
Oh, I think I've seen that, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, you're straight!" Like,
and everyone was. It was almost like a conversation of, is this person invading our space? And it's like, well, what is our space? What do you
mean by that? Like,
what is our space? Why can't a heterosexual man be interested in expressing his gender identity and his gender expression?
Well, at the end of the day, drag is
a heterosexual norm.
Drag is just a performance art, isn't it? So what's,
I think that stems from toxic masculinity in social media. As soon as you see a man dressing up, the media wants you to assume that this man is part of the LGBT.
Well, look at Billy Elliot.
Yeah, literally.
That's a perfect example.
100%.
Like, everyone's like, oh, he's going to be gay, and he never was, but because he took an interest in ballet, which obviously back in the 80s, you wouldn't have any lads doing it.
No. I think it's crazy. The media literally tries to give you a rounded off idea of how people should present and represent themselves. And I think that it's very easy for all of these following films and TV shows to just go, well, that's how it was, and we can kind of get that basic storyline and we'll just add our own twist to it. It's like, no, just find someone real and genuine.
Well, it's like looking into like future. So we've talked about obviously the past of our representation, but like looking at shows that are out now that are based in the future, where you've got like Star Trek Discovery, there's a monogamous gay couple adopting trans kids. Alien, there's trans characters that it doesn't even really get brought up, they're just there. And The Expanse with polyamorous families, it's kind of like they know that these kinds of relationships and families are not really, haven't been accepted, are being accepted now. So kind of, well, in the future, it's obviously a futuristic trait to have.
And you also want to lay the groundwork for, being on the right side of history. You don't want people to go back and watch, say, your movie or your TV show or read your book or watch your play in like 2074 or whatever and being like, oh God, that didn't age well.
Yeah, you don't.
No one wants
Ace
to be
Ventura, for perfect example.
Yeah, no one wants to be on the wrong side of history anymore. And I think that's possibly why the representation in certain cases, not just for the LGBT community, but for a lot of communities, it's kind of falling short, because instead of crafting the representation properly and making it, worthwhile, they're just going, right, well, we need to put this character in here, or we need to do this because that's what people are doing nowadays, and we need to make sure everyone's included.
Yeah.
It's like, not everyone needs to be included in every single project. People should see themselves in the things that they consume.
Well, this is it.
Not every single thing.
I think that's also a very toxic thing.
Just to kind of conclude on all this, so I did also a bit of research. Well, basically what everything that we've been talking about, we can all agree that like media has such a part to play in not only how society kind of progresses, but like general social norms. And how the narrative of a film or a TV show can like ultimately change someone's opinion on
definitely
a whole community.
100%.
Well, naturally, narratives that are too one-sided, as I said earlier, they kind of like make you put a wall up, and you kind of like, you watch it from a different perspective then as intended, because you're like, well, I know what they're trying to do. But ultimately, I think to really play on people's heartstrings, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about empathy. So Roger Ebert once said, for me, the movie is like a machine that generates empathy. If it's a great movie, it lets you understand a little more about what it's like to be a different gender, a different race, a different age, a different economic class, a different nationality, a different profession, different hopes, aspirations, dreams, and fears. It helps us identify with people who are sharing with this journey, and that, to me, is the most noble thing that a good movie can do. It's a reason to encourage them and to support them and to go to see them.
100%. I literally fully agree with that.
Yeah.
Like everything that you could possibly say that you want from a movie to make you feel, you want it to move you. You want it to, sit there and think, you know what?
You want it to have an impact on the audience.
Yeah, you want to go home and think, maybe I'll wash those dishes because my wife needs a bit more help or something. You know what I mean? Like it completely changes. And if it does that, that movie has done what it was supposed to do.
Definitely.
100%.
I'm paraphrasing this a little bit, but I remember hearing a quote of, it was more to do with books, if I'm honest, but it was, a reader lives 1,000 lives.
Yeah.
And it is true that when you are a big consumer of stories, you do live those lives. You become a part of that person's life, if not that person during that time. And the big thing about becoming that person for a little bit is you want that person to actually become that person. You want them to actually want to go on that adventure.
Yeah.
And if someone's walking in, their representation of their particular community isn't great, the person's going to shut off because they're like, I can't be bothered with this. I hear it on the news. I see it on TikTok. I see it everywhere.
It's like you even saying before about the hype of things. It's like, I just turn off when I hear, everyone's banging on about this thing.
I just, I think it depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But also, like, a lot of the time, I'm not there for the hype. I'd love to talk about it in 6 months' time, when everyone's calmed down and you don't get your head bit off because you've got a different opinion to someone at that specific time.
See, Dylan, the only issue I've got is you've not watched Heartstopper yet.
Oh, the books are right there in front of me, and I'm like, oh, shall I have a little quick scan through?
Well, just to finish off with the episode, I do have a couple of things from Chester Pridecast that I would like to highlight. First of all, I've never said this, but if you would kindly like and subscribe and rate 5 stars to our podcast, that really helps us.
Just do it.
But yeah, it really does help us. And if there is anything that you'd like to discuss or you'd like to ask us, anything like that, you can email us at pridecast@chesterpride.co.uk. The next thing I've got here is our annual food bank campaign in aid of the West Cheshire Food Bank is now running until December 15th, 2023. Sadly, the demand for the food bank is increasing annually, and we are determined with your help to smash the 4,000 items that we collected last year. Now, we had a meeting about this, and it's like, if we have another can of beans, like I'm sure West Cheshire said, like they filled a wall full of beans. And like it's got to the point now where they're like trading with other food banks, which is good, but like it's like no more beans.
It's the natural go-to, isn't it? When you think a tin of something, and usually that tin is always beans. But it's like if you're doing it, Janet down the street is doing it. So's Bob and so's Carol. Stop.
But the full details are on Chester Pride website and on the socials. So if there is like almost like a shopping list of things that, you know, ideal or basically required of. And then the other thing is spaces are filling up very fast for the Chester Pride Christmas buffet meal. So if anyone is struggling with Christmas this year, if you are alone or you're struggling to afford Christmas, our doors are open. So if you are interested in something like that, email info@chesterpride.co.uk. And finally, as this airs, it will be Transgender Awareness Week. So happy Transgender Week, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
So that's the 13th to the 19th of November, with Remembrance Day for transgender people on the 20th. And we are revealing a little special surprise at the tea rooms. Yeah, it should be really nice.
Even if you're not, come down anyway.
Yeah, come down anyway. Bye.
Get off the telly. Bye.
Don't forget, you can reach out to us or email in your dilemmas via email, pridecast@chesterpride.co.uk, and Chester Pride is produced by Studio 30,000.